Okay, I realised I was bigging up today, but today is the biggest day of the entire walk.
While in hindsight, this didn't end up being the biggest day of the walk, in my opinion, it still ended up being incredibly eventful. To find out what happened, watch this episode of Walking the Length of the A4. Hello, my name's John, filmmaker and slightly experienced walker, and last year I decided to go on a bit of a journey. I wanted to walk the length of the historic road linking the west coast of England to London. There'll be highs.
I've done at least 15 miles so far today.
And lows.
Am I regretting choosing the A4 now? Well, that remains to be seen.
And lots of walking. Please enjoy this episode of Walking the Length of the A4.
It's the polar opposite of yesterday. I remember yesterday was like the last stretch of a very long day. This is like the first stretch of an even longer day. I'm struggling. It's not a good sign.
The Premier Inn in North Chippenham would be where I started day 4 of the walk. I'd meet the A4 at the bridge roundabout and follow the route of this avenue with a French name which I'm not going to try and pronounce. At the end of that section, I would get to the longest rural part of the A4, only walking through the town of Caen and ending it in Avebury Stone Circle. This would prove to be the longest day of the trip so far at 17 miles, and I didn't help matters by calling this huge stretch of nothing the Gap. Right now though, we find ourselves where we left off yesterday.
Okay, we're exactly where we finished yesterday. We've already done a mile today, by the way. Or over a mile. We walked into the town centre. So that's 1 down, 16 to go. Still a long way.
The avenue, which I can't pronounce, where I was walking down, is essentially a bypass to the town centre. It has no footpath and no buildings. So why was I walking this way rather than the town centre? Because it's the route to the A4. Yes, I've not forgotten to follow it.
One trouble with walking here, the grass is really wet on the foot. My shoes are somehow holding up, but it is so wet underfoot right now.
It's also worth mentioning that it was around this point my little GoPro started having problems. Every other shot of it that was over 20 seconds long for some reason crashed the thing and I lost the entire clip. This would be a problem that would largely affect the rest of the journey. Also, to add to my list of problems, I severely overlooked the weather that day, but more on that later. For now, I was at the very edge of Chippenham.
Right, this roundabout here marks the edge of Chippenham and the start of the Gap, where there's no big towns until Newbury. This is the true start of the A4.
It being the true start of the A4 is just a little debatable, but this would be where the road started becoming more of an obstacle to me, as a mile after filming this clip, I said this.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm struggling. It's like a really steep hill and sun's burning and feet are hurting. I'm really struggling right now. The thing keeping me going is I know I'm about halfway to Caen, but right now I'm way less motivated than I was like this time yesterday, I'll tell you that much. Also, the footpath's vanished, so I'm going to have to walk on the road for a bit. Well, the footpath's back. The trouble is now I'm out of the shade. It's actually quite nice though. If only the footpath was on the other side of the road. Now I'm in the sun again. Lovely.
If you couldn't tell by now, the biggest problem of the day turned out to be the sun. I hadn't predicted it to be as warm as it was, so I neglected to pack sun lotion or more than 2 bottles of water. It was manageable now, but as the day went on, you'll see.
Oh, we made it to Caen. Oh, it's not even 11:30, we made it to Caen. It's not over yet, but that's a big chunk of today done. I had to take a little sit down because I've been on my feet since, I've been on my feet since I was having breakfast, I think. So we've done quite well to reach Caen by 11:30. I think I've done well.
The town of Caen is comparable with Keynsham or Corsham in terms of population. But what makes it different from those two is Caen has no Bristol or Bath near it. There is Chippenham, which is 4.5 miles to the west, but in the east there is nothing for 12 miles. Caen is literally in the middle of nowhere, so I had to make the most out of my time there. Except I didn't.
Alright, so I'm currently sat outside Caen Town Hall, sipping a Red Bull.
That was all I did in Caen to recuperate some energy. However, you can't entirely blame me. If I had more time to waste, I would have certainly stopped off to have a drink, maybe a bit of food, and certainly stocked up on water, but I was in a rush. I've already mentioned I was planning to end the day in Avebury Stone Circle, but what I haven't mentioned yet is that Avebury, as you can tell, has no hotels. So that meant that I had to get a bus to Swindon, which is a little way north of the A4, and stay in the Premier Inn there. Of course, to get to Swindon though, I had to get a bus, and the last bus was around 7 PM. That's not too early, but it's definitely early enough to make me rush to get there. I may have had enough time to spare looking back, but on that day, I had no choice but to keep moving until I reached the bus stop. So that's what I had to do, walk there and fast, or at least as fast as I could.
The sun is right overhead now. There's no shade on either side of the road, so I'm just having to suffer through it. Plus I've got a blister on my little toe on my left foot. So every step I'm taking right now is a deliberate action. At the start of the trip it's like automatic, and now I'm thinking about every step and getting annoyed over little things. Right, yeah, it's getting a lot harder, a lot harder. This is such a long stretch of the road. Am I regretting choosing the A4 now? Well, that remains to be seen. But at the moment, I'm not a big fan of it.
After taking 10 minutes refuge at the strange sundial near Chur Hill, I came up to a very stunning place on the A4.
That's a Chur Hill White Horse over there. Quite interesting, isn't it? Halfway from the edge of Caen to the start of the first line, turning to Avebury, so really getting there now.
One other thing to note about the gap is where there are footpaths, they are not very good. But I had to make the most of the footpaths available to me because the next day I would be missing them.
That was a false alarm. Now is when there's no footpaths.
More on that later. For now, let's return to the sun and water problem.
I see the A4 goes to trees. Oh, shade. I hope. Oh, I need shade. That's like the thing I need most. Shade and a beer. That's what I need. Some beer most of all, but shade is a very close second. I had to take another sit down. It's become a bit of a routine now. Like walk about half a mile and then sit down. I didn't even realise until now I'm in the North Essex Downs. No wonder it looks so beautiful.
I don't remember exactly where, but it was around here that I ran out. Yes, ran out of water. If I thought the day was hard before, by this point my struggles were only going to get worse.
Right, you may notice I've changed my attire a little. My right arm, I feel like it's getting a little burnt because it's facing the sun, so I put my bandana over it. Weird technique, I know. And hopefully that'll keep it a little safer. Avebury village. You will never find the more wretched hive of stones and history. In all seriousness, no, we're near Avebury. Oh my god. Oh, I can see it. Oh my god, I can't even form words right now. I'm so happy I'm very near Avebury. Now I'm just giving myself encouragement to go on. Oh, what's this? Oh, that's interesting. So, let's work this out. It says 7 miles to Marlborough. I was at it the first time I looked, we're now like 38, and that was like coming up to Bath. So, God knows how far I've travelled by this point. Like, I wouldn't even like to guess right now. I'm guessing around 44, 45 miles. Nah, 47 miles I think. I'm close to 50. Oh my god. That's insane that. And 5 miles from Caen. 82 miles to London. 82 miles until we finish the trip. Like officially. Oh, that's great that. Even ignoring the fact that, you know, I've done that distance over the last few days. Like, even today's record breaking. I've done at least 15 miles so far today. Like, I've never done that before. I've never walked 50 miles in a day. At least in a, like, straight line. Just from knowing I'm this close, it's giving me an energy boost. Like, this is an energy boost I've honestly not had as, well, for at least a couple of days. But it's like, I was never expecting this kind of energy boost today. It's time to finish it.
Optimism had returned, and approaching Avebury, I thought I was in the clear. However, to find out if I was right to be this optimistic, I'm afraid you'll have to tune in next time, as I entered the hardest section of the A4.